You've always felt a little different, haven't you? Like you see things others miss. Like your presence shifts the energy in the room even when you say nothing. That's not a coincidence. It's your essence. You're not here to fit in. You're here to realign what's been out of tune. You don't need to prove yourself because your power isn't in your volume. It's in your stillness, in your heart, in the way people feel safe just by being near you. If you've ever been told you're too sensitive, too intense, or too much, know this: that's exactly what makes you rare. And rare things aren't always understood. They're felt. So don't shrink. Don't hide your light. The world needs what you carry. This space is for you, the ones who love deeply, walk gently, and impact everything without trying. You're not just passing through this life. You're shaping it, quietly, powerfully. Welcome to the reminder of who you truly are. There are those whose quiet presence seems almost imperceptible at first, but over time, you realize their essence reshapes everything around them. Not through force or display, but through a depth of being that reshapes the emotional temperature of any space they enter. It's not about smiles or kind words. It's the way they carry stillness that absorbs unrest, how they make people feel safe without doing anything visible. Their way of moving through the world doesn't demand attention. It draws it in through an unspoken knowing. They are not driven by ego or recognition. Their strength is not a performance, but a quiet certainty built over time, through moments no one saw, choices made in solitude, burdens carried in silence. When they are wronged, they do not erupt, they simply shift. And in that shift, something unshakable is revealed. Not revenge, but a boundary made of clarity. They don't act from pain, but from alignment with something deeper than opinion or pride. Their quietude is often mistaken for weakness until it becomes a mirror. When they step back, dynamics collapse, not because they wished for it, but because their presence had been holding up what others ignored. Their absence speaks louder than arguments. Their threshold, once crossed, does not reopen. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. This reflection isn't for those seeking noise or validation. It reaches those who have given generously without being seen, who understand that choosing peace is not the same as surrendering. It's for those who walk away not to escape, but to protect the sacred within them. If these words resonate, it's likely because you've lived the experience, not just imagined it. Some energies don't broadcast themselves. They arrive and shift what needs to be shifted, like a breeze in a tense room that no one notices until it's gone. They don't claim space. Space adjusts to them. Their influence isn't strategic. It's inherent, natural. They don't impose, but their energy recalibrates whatever it touches. To be close to such a person is to feel something in you settle, not because of what they say, but because of who they are, steady, grounded, quietly aligned. You sense the weight of what they've survived, though they rarely speak of it. They see into you, not in a way that invades, but that honors. Their empathy doesn't come from theory, but from walking through invisible fires and learning how to carry light without burning others. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. There's something about a lighthouse standing still while storms rage around it. It doesn't chase ships, it doesn't shout, it doesn't move, but by simply shining, it guides. And sometimes, it saves. That's what these souls are like. They don't come to impress, they come to illuminate. Not with noise or flash, but with presence. Real, steady, spirit-filled presence. You might not always know what just happened, but when they've walked into the room, something shifts. And if you're sensitive enough, you can feel it in your chest before you even understand it in your mind. These are the ones who've been refined, not in comfort, but in fire. The ones who didn't get their clarity from books alone, but from sleepless nights, deep losses, and the kind of quiet battles no one ever sees. That's why their presence isn't always soft. It's honest. It's clean. It's stripped of performance. You don't leave an encounter with them feeling entertained. You leave feeling awakened. And in a world that runs on illusion, that kind of clarity can feel like a storm before it feels like peace. You don't have to look long to find someone who talks loud, demands attention, takes up space. But the chosen don't need any of that. Their atmosphere speaks for them. Their silence has more depth than most people's speeches. Not because they're trying to make a point, but because they've become aligned with something deeper than opinion, truth. They've gone inward, not to hide, but to connect with something eternal. And when you've lived that kind of truth, when your compass is the spirit, not the spotlight, your presence becomes more than your words. You don't need to declare who you are. You just are. And that is the kind of identity no one can take away from you. When you get around people like that, things in you start to rise to the surface. Not because they're judging you, but because the false parts of you start to fall off in their light. Masks get uncomfortable. Performances fall flat. That smile you force, it starts to crack. Not because you're exposed, but because their authenticity calls yours forward. Being near them is like standing in front of a mirror that shows your soul, not your image. And if you've still got things you're hiding, that can be unsettling. But for those ready to grow, it's healing. That's why some people feel nervous around the chosen. It's not because they're harsh, it's because they're real. And realness disrupts anything built on illusion. They don't have to ask questions. They don't have to press. Just their presence begins to uncover what doesn't belong. And suddenly, people around them begin to reevaluate. It's like gravity shifts. What was floating suddenly falls. What was hidden rises. And it's not magic, it's alignment. They're not here to tear anyone down. They're here to bring everything back into truth. And if that means things break along the way, so be it. Because what they carry is too precious to water down. Their energy doesn't flatter, it frees. Their honesty doesn't harm, it heals. They are not looking for applause, they're looking for alignment. They didn't come to perform, they came to embody. And in their stillness, in their groundedness, in their unshakable truth, something ancient and sacred lives. If you've ever met someone who made you feel seen without saying a word, who made you want to stand taller just by standing next to them, then you've already encountered this presence. You didn't know what it was. You just knew something sacred was near. And if you are that person, if you feel like this speaks directly to your heart, then maybe, just maybe, you've been the lighthouse all along. Not loud, not showy, but unshakably radiant. Not because you tried to be, but because you are. And the world, it's finally ready to see you shine. Reactions vary. Some lean closer, drawn by the unexpected relief of being seen. Others retract, startled by a clarity they weren't ready to meet. For those who are used to layers and filters, this can feel too sudden, too raw. There's no declaration of insight, yet there's an unmistakable sense that nothing escapes their perception. Their understanding doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It arrives with calm certainty, shaped not by pride, but by observation. They hold contradictions gently, acceptance without delusion, love that doesn't excuse, presence that doesn't possess. It's this rare alchemy, unwavering honesty joined with warmth, that creates both confusion and comfort in others. To stand near someone like this is to face a quiet decision, remain hidden, or step into full visibility. It's not a question spoken aloud, but it's felt, like standing at the edge of a reflective lake where every ripple asks, "Will you look?" Those who do are changed, not because they're corrected, but because they're seen, completely and without masks. This isn't about dominance or persuasion. It's about offering space where only the genuine survives. Their energy rearranges the unspoken rules in the room, not through authority, but through presence alone. And often, that presence is mistaken, misread as intense, distant, or even harsh. But it is none of those. It is simply unshakably real. For those who've ever watched someone quietly transform an entire atmosphere without lifting a hand or raising a voice, this is the reason. What is real recognizes what is real. And when truth takes the form of a human being, it does not need to prove itself. It listens more than it speaks, waits longer than expected, and understands far more than it shows. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. They carry a deep endurance that confuses many, often staying longer than they should, offering grace where others would have turned cold, and keeping faith in people even after repeated wounds. Yet this resilience is not born from fragility. It is a firm and conscious stance, the fruit of inner cultivation that doesn't rush to protect pride, but to preserve peace. Understanding that growth can be slow and messy, they don't seek to control others with reaction. They sidestep unnecessary friction, not out of fear, but from knowing how energy should be spent. Conflict is never their first language. Their quiet is not silence of defeat. It is strategy. It is peace chosen over temporary victory. Their stillness carries weight. It is the kind of quiet that allows truth to surface without coercion. Instead of forcing clarity, they allow time and space to do what confrontation never could. They wait, not because they're unaware, but because they believe some realizations must arrive on their own. They extend patience, like open doors, not endless, but enough to show hope. But every open door has a threshold. When they recognize a pattern of disregard, wrapped in apologies, their rhythm changes. They do not erupt, do not beg to be understood. They recede, calmly, fully, with no spectacle. Their withdrawal isn't abrupt, it's earned, after efforts, after reflection, after too many chances given. And when they step back, something essential disappears with them. The dynamic shifts, the unspoken equilibrium collapses. What once felt stable begins to feel hollow. Their role, once invisible, becomes unmistakable by its absence. The weight they silently carried becomes clear only when it's no longer holding things together. Those who once overlooked them begin to notice the echo their silence leaves, not as a punishment, but as a lesson. They never demanded acknowledgement, yet their exit reveals the extent of their investment. Their stillness teaches where words failed. Their departure explains what their presence tried to hold. They are not here to be consumed. Their generosity is not infinite. They have learned that to protect their own peace, they must sometimes disappear from places that chip away at it. What they offer is sacred, and they do not give it blindly. When their belief in humanity is returned with disregard, they do not respond with rage. They respond with distance, with discernment, with grace that now guards itself. They've come to understand that endurance is not about staying anywhere at any cost. It's about knowing when care turns into depletion. And when that line is crossed too many times, their answer isn't fire, it's absence. Not to wound, but to heal themselves. Not to condemn, but to move where their energy is respected, not erased. There are souls who for far too long place themselves second, not because they are unaware of their worth, but because something inside them insists on showing up, believing, staying. They hold space even when exhausted, keep hoping even when let down, and pour themselves into others until one day a quiet inner voice rises with clarity. Now is the time to step back, to guard what remains unbroken, to stop abandoning yourself for the sake of everyone else's comfort. Their strength is often misread, not because it's hidden, but because it's expressed through calm decisions rather than loud exits. They are steady, but not endless. When they walk away, it is not with fragments of affection or unfinished intentions. It is final, whole, and without resentment. Their endurance wasn't blind, it was simply vast. And once it's gone, it's because it's stretched far beyond what most would ever consider. They move from care, not from obligation. When they sense pain in others, they lean in, rather than recoil. It's as if some unseen force within them propels them to protect, to guide, to hold. Not to be seen, not to be praised, but because not helping feels unnatural. They don't analyze whether it's deserved. They respond to need the way a flame responds to wind, instinctively, immediately. They become silent anchors for many, the steady presence during storms others cannot weather. Their ability to understand unspoken burdens, to remain when others scatter, makes them essential in spaces they never tried to dominate. Their warmth doesn't ask to be noticed. Their compassion isn't timed, but it carries the weight of those who've chosen to be dependable even when it costs them. Still, there's a lesson that even the most giving must learn, that being a refuge does not mean becoming a shadow of oneself. The protector eventually faces their own reflection and sees how long they've been standing last in line. It doesn't always come in a dramatic moment. Sometimes it's just a realization in the silence. This giving is no longer sacred. It's becoming self-erasure. That shift isn't cruel. It's a restoration. For the first time, they place their own well-being at the center of the equation, not as rebellion, but as rebalancing. It often catches others off guard, especially those who mistook their selflessness for unshakable availability. The change isn't spoken, it's felt, in the absence of energy once freely given, in the unraveling of dynamics built on their unacknowledged labor. Their exit reveals the quiet architecture they provided. What once appeared stable begins to dissolve, and only then does the full weight of their role come into view, not through confrontation, but through their absence. They didn't leave to punish, they left to preserve what was left of themselves. And that, more than anything, is their ultimate act of wisdom. Some beings walk with such intentional care that even their retreat feels sacred. For them, Stepping away is not abandonment. It is an act of reverence for their own essence. Over time, they come to understand that what they carry is not meant for every space, that their energy must be held with discernment, because giving endlessly without boundary does not heal. It empties. When they walk away, it's never sudden. It follows quiet attempts, internal reckonings, subtle recalibrations. Their final choice is never a product of emotional storms, but the outcome of persistent effort met with disregard. Their departure is rooted in love, but also in a recognition. No path is worth following if it leads them to lose themselves. Their devotion is never forced. They feel compelled to hold space for others, often before anyone asks. It's not performative, it's instinct, a pull from somewhere unnameable, as if their care is wired into their being. They stand close in moments when others scatter. Their presence becomes invisible scaffolding, the thing others lean on without realizing it. But there comes a time when the foundation they offer begins to crack, not from pressure, but from lack of reciprocity. They awaken one day and realize the structure they've been supporting has never paused to ask how they're standing. And in that moment, everything shifts. They no longer feel guilt for stepping back. They feel clarity. The distance they choose is not born of anger. It is born of recognition that continuing to pour into a space that only takes is not kindness, it is self-betrayal. So they quiet themselves not to disappear, but to protect the parts of them that still feel whole. They stop explaining, stop justifying. Their silence begins to do the speaking for them. This quiet is not empty. It pulses with meaning. It marks the boundary they now enforce, not out of punishment, but out of necessity. To persist in speaking where they are not heard is to lose pieces of themselves each time. And so, they say nothing, because in that nothing, everything is finally understood. Their silence holds weight. It shifts dynamics. What once felt effortless now feels unmoored. The balance that existed often unnoticed starts to unravel. The ease others took for granted vanishes, and the realization lands heavily. They were the harmony, the unseen center that made things work. What's most remarkable is how they go. No noise, no dramatic exits, no proclamations, just quiet, dignified distance. They carry the knowledge that they gave fully, stayed truly, and left only when staying meant erasing who they were. And in that choice, they don't lose anything. They finally reclaim everything. Some absences don't echo. They transform the atmosphere entirely. What was once steady begins to falter. Not because of drama, but because a subtle force that held everything in quiet balance has stepped away. What is missed is not just a person, but a presence that offered harmony without seeking applause. The shift isn't loud, but it is unmistakable. And when they leave, it's never about vengeance. There are no ultimatums, no need for validation. They trust that clarity arrives with time, and that what remains unspoken often reveals more than repeated explanation. Their silence becomes the final act of love toward themselves. A closing of the door not out of bitterness, but to reclaim what was given too freely. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. That's when they begin again. not from resentment, but from the recognition that their own peace must no longer be delayed. They choose stillness over confusion, honesty over performance. What they seek isn't perfection from others, but consistency. And when that is replaced with empty effort, they choose to walk forward, not with noise, but with resolve. Even in distance, their essence doesn't vanish. It continues speaking through what was once overlooked. Their quiet is not emptiness. It is communication in its most distilled form. Those who are awake to it understand. Silence in their hands becomes both boundary and expression, not because they stopped caring, but because they had to care differently. This kind of maturity is often misunderstood, but those who really see them begin to understand that removing themselves wasn't coldness, it was clarity, choosing ease over pretense, wholeness over fracture. And anyone who has stepped away after offering too much knows. That moment wasn't weakness, it was strength reclaimed. Those who have felt such a departure learn more from it than from any long conversation. It is in the hush that realizations rise, because silence, when intentional, carries the deepest truths, truths that words only complicate. And for those who walk this path, there comes a point when preserving their inner light matters more than keeping everyone else comfortable. This isn't about rejecting others, it's about remembering themselves. After years of giving, of remaining solid, of anchoring others without complaint, the soul speaks up. It says, no more shrinking to keep others large, no more quiet suffering beneath the mask of resilience. The shift comes not in rage, but in tired truth. And maybe all they ever needed wasn't to be admired, but to be held with the same sincerity they gave. Not perfection, just mutual regard. Not endless praise, but simple presence. They offered constancy, loyalty, quiet love. But even those who give endlessly eventually learn. They too deserve gentleness. They too deserve to rest. Some hearts are wired to offer more than they receive. Until one day, the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. It's not a sudden collapse, but a slow internal unraveling, where every unspoken need and every overlooked gesture accumulates like quiet thunder. The body starts carrying the weight of what the voice has never dared to say, and clarity begins to pierce through all the justifications. Then a change unfolds, soft, deliberate, unannounced. Without bitterness or spectacle, they begin to retreat, not out of punishment, but from a deeper understanding of their own capacity. The ones who once gave endlessly now begin to conserve. Those who never hesitated to show up now become more selective, and it shifts everything. They start to notice what they had ignored, what drains, what depletes, what disguises itself as care but never truly reciprocates. Their affection doesn't vanish, it evolves. Now it's accompanied by discernment, shaped by lessons learned through overextension. They no longer pour endlessly. They choose where the vessel is worthy. What once was confusion now becomes clarity. Where once they clung to hope, they now observe with calm precision. Where once they over-explained, they now speak less, not from resignation, but from wisdom. Their love becomes refined, first turned inward, then outward, only to those who meet it with equal depth. New energies arrive, ones that don't consume, but co-create, people who match presence with presence. Those who see intensity not as a burden, but as a gift. They're not afraid of depth, they welcome it. They don't shrink from truth, they reflect it. And in that mirroring, the chosen one feels what had long been missing: ease. These new exchanges feel different, There's no testing, no veiled control, no tension hidden beneath politeness. Instead, there's resonance, a natural rhythm, the kind that doesn't ask you to shrink, dim, or fragment. It simply allows you to be fully, wildly, quietly, and that alone is healing. And if you're still somewhere between letting go and starting again, that space is part of the cycle too. It may feel uncertain, but it's clearing ground for something truer. In this stretch of silence and solitude, the heart recalibrates. And what seems like loss is often a doorway. You haven't hardened, you've deepened. You haven't stopped loving. You've begun to love with more intelligence. This isn't about walls, it's about doors with keys only trust can turn. This is maturity. This is resilience redefined. The chosen don't disappear. They evolve. And in that evolution, they stop tolerating what dims them. That radiance others once took for granted, it never left. It's just no longer available to those who refuse to honor it. Because this light was never meant to flicker for the comfort of others. It was meant to blaze and to know when to turn away from where it is no longer seen.